here.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I always start in the morning, but it's very weird. It's evening time here, or getting close to it. And this is Carla of Rehan Allahwala's World of Connections. And I am here to speak to one of my panelists for Mindful, Raushawna Price, who is going to explain her name to me because I haven't gotten much about that, and we don't really know each other that well. But we're going to get to know each other. She's really a very cool lady. Anyway, I want to remind you that this show is sponsored by the Institute of Peace, which is an online organization promoting peace one conversation at a time. And I can guarantee you a conversation with Raushawna will be worth listening to. Having said that, Raushawna, please
Carla.
introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. So I am Raushawna Price. And my trademark is I'm the giver of awesomeness. Before we get to that, let me share with you about my name. So my first name, Raushawna, was given to me from birth by my father. And I was actually named after one of his students in his first 2 years of teaching. So my dad was a public school educator in Rochester, New York for over 30 years. And in his couple of years, he had a student named Shawn, Shawn. And that's a student that imprinted on his heart. So for all the educators out there listening, you may have a student that you just remember. You remember their story, you remember the connection. And so Shawn was that boy for my father. And then when I was born, he added the RAU to it and the A on the end. And that's how I came to be Raushawna. So Raushawna Price is my official name now, and Giver of Awesomeness is my trademark. And that came to be when I was sitting at my computer, maybe like some of you now, if you're watching, and I was looking on LinkedIn and updating my profile. And updating my profile seemed very daunting at the time. Like you have to put titles in and say what you do and who you are. And I was like, I just don't really know. And so I started to ask. I was like, all right, God, who do you want me to be in this world? I don't want to just be a title. I want to be who you're calling me to be. And all of a sudden, it was like all of these names of people and what people have said. You're amazing. You're outstanding. You rock. You're awesome. You're a giver. And then it was like, giver of awesomeness. And a little tiny voice that said, trademark that. And so I did. And I've been using it ever since. And I believe it's a movement. It's how I help people discover that inner gift and talent that they have that maybe they're not feeling brave enough to bring out, or they're keeping it to themselves. And what good is a gift if you never give it? So that's how I help people grow their businesses, their careers, by giving awesomeness to the world around them.
I really like that.
Yeah.
Finding your gift is sometimes people have trouble finding it. And yet it's right in front of them.
Mm-hmm. Right in front of them. And what I've found is sometimes it's packaged in the icky stuff, in the bullying that happens, in the name calling and adversity and in difficulty. And sometimes the bullies, and especially in my personal situations, and I can share with you about that, of being bullied at work when I was working and having a bully boss. That bully boss actually taught me a lot about my gifts and talents, my awesomeness. And sometimes we don't think about it that way, but some of that adversity that we face is really trying to get us to like use the inner gifts that we have and bring it out. Otherwise, it'll lay dormant or it won't get to the potential that it really has.
Now, were you bullied in your family at all? Like I had an older brother and sister, and I was bullied, but they were 9 and 10 years older than me. Did you?
Oh, wow. So I do. I have an older brother and we're 2 years apart. And growing up, there was definitely name calling. I was bullied as a young child for, it's funny now because I speak a lot. And when I was bullied, when I was young, I was being bullied for talking like a white girl. Oh, you're so white. You speak so proper. That was really a hard time for me until I just decided. I remember going into seventh grade and I was like, you know what? I'm done with that. I'm just going to be who I'm going to be. I'm going to have friends that like me, and the people who don't, I don't care about them.
And you learned that as a child?
I did. I learned that as a child because when I was in fourth and fifth grade, so bullying for me started in fourth grade when we had new students coming into the school. There was a sense of, old students that had been there and like the new students, the cool kids. And I was actually bullied and picked on by other people that looked like me, other young Black kids. And because I had a lot of white friends. And so that was one of the things that was happening, was this separation of race and class. And because I was bullied and I was picked on for who my friends were and how I spoke, I always stood out. And I tried to fit in. And what would happen when I fit in, I was just picked on more. So what I realized was I can't do this. And I went through a period when I thought about taking my life, when I wrote a note to my parents. Yeah, I did. I wrote a note to my parents. And at the time, Mariah Carey's song Hero was like a really big song. I auditioned for the school talent show, and I didn't get picked to sing that song. And so I just was going through a lot of things where I felt like I wasn't good enough, like I wasn't worthy. And so I wrote a note to my parents, and I wasn't sure exactly how I wanted to commit suicide. I thought about it, I wrote about it. But I knew that there was something else. So there had to be more to this. And that's in the timing throughout those times that I realized at the end of the day, I've been trying to fit in with these kids and they don't like me. And I've been trying to change and be better and fit in with these kids and they don't like me. So ultimately, all I can do is be me and find people that love me and like me for who I am. And so by the time I got to middle school, that was my whole thing. It's like, if you don't like me, then that's fine. And by the time I got to college, that cycle started again. And I actually stopped being friends with a few people because I was like, you know what? I can tell by your language, you really don't like who I am. And that's okay. And we don't have to be friends.
Wow. I remember being very open to different cultures and color, but I can't imagine being Black during that time of life and what was going on.
It's interesting because there's so many different levels to race and discrimination and what it looks like. And we've been in the situations here currently, the way things have gone with racial injustice and all of the things that are being talked about. There's so many different stories. And when you look at a person, it doesn't matter what color they are, you have to know their story. Because if you just judge by the color of their skin, or maybe even by the money they have or how you think they live, you could be missing many layers. Most people might say, if I said to them I was bullied, they may assume that I was bullied by people that don't look like me. When the truth is I was really bullied by people that do.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And you dealt with it.
And I dealt with it. And I chose to decide that I would look at people from the heart perspective, because ultimately, when people say things to you, it's a projection of what they wish they had or what they want or what they see in you that maybe they're wanting. They just don't know how to express it. And in most bully conversations, the conversation is a lot about the bully. Well, they don't have this, they want that. And I am committed to helping people that have been bullied understand that they picked you for a reason. I understand that the bullies in my life from playground to adulthood all picked me because I have something great. And I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm not going to shrink down for that. And that I'm going to use my greatness, my gifts, my talents, what I call awesomeness, to help other people.
I'm in awe. For many, many reasons. I needed this tonight. You have a book, The Giver of Awesomeness?
I do. I don't know if you can see it. It's behind me.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I did. So I published this book a little over a year ago because honestly, I didn't think the stories were worth telling. I just knew that they were my stories. I had gone through a lot of writing and healing to heal my own stuff because I wanted to help people and coach and do more speaking. However, I didn't want to do it from a place of hurt. I wanted to do it from a place of healing. And I'm a huge superhero fan. I love superheroes. Anytime Transformers is on, I'm watching it. I've watched all the Marvel movies. The music swells. There's the redemption. I'm like, yes, go. So in my process of looking at all of the time I had been bullied, I wanted to understand that if all of the negative things that people had said and done to me, if there was actually going to be a public good, so you kind of flip it to the other side, then I could be able to heal. And so I wrote the book after I was going to a women's conference in Texas, like on a whim. Have you ever had one of those times where you've like said yes to something and then had no idea how to do it?
Mine poor.
Okay. Yeah. So that was my Texas one woman conference experience. A friend of mine sent me the link and said, you should apply to speak. And I was like, I don't even really know what I would talk about. And I applied and I was like, I guess I'll tell a story about how I believe that bullies are awesomeness stealers and they're actually super villains that you can use as your superhero to help you find your awesomeness. And so I went on stage. It was a 20-minute talk. I talked for 17 minutes. And when I came off stage, women were asking to buy my book and I didn't have a book. And so I went home and wrote a book in 4 months and said, I'll write the book and let God do the rest. And here it is.
You just inspired me.
Yeah. Good. You need to write your book, Carla. Get it out there.
I do. This man, I don't know where he's from, but he's a big fan of yours, apparently. He's saying this, I'll put them, I don't think you read this, but this book is very thoughtful. It heals and encourages people. And he actually wants to do an interview with you.
I would love to. Wow.
The book.
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to. I think the thing about the book, one, so I have an engineering background. That's something else you might not know, Carla.
I'm getting shocked.
You said you want, yeah, we're going to get to know each other really. So I have an industrial and systems engineering background, so a bachelor's and a master's. And I studied human factors, ergonomics. So for me, it was a blend of people and machines. And so I worked in food manufacturing for 8 years, did project management, worked on amazing brands with amazing people, and led lots of big teams. Like I worked third shift, second shift, first shift. I understand it. I get it. And there's a love I have for the hum machines and like when things are moving and running. And I also see that same hum when I coach people now. It's the understanding that we all are inner machines and when we are clicking and humming, we can do anything. We can make anything happen. So often there's glitches that happen, just like when I was in my engineering days. You could hear when bearings were starting to fail, when it was time for maintenance. And if we can listen to our machines, our bodies, we can heal. We can say, it's time to quit. It's time to take a stop. It's okay to break. give yourself permission to shut down, do a clean out. All of the things that I learned in my engineering days, I transform into the work I do now. So that's just another little fun fact about me.
I'm amazed. I'm in awe. Talking about the fun facts of you.
Yeah.
You got me speechless. I'm having trouble talking. Talking about the fun facts. You have been, how long have you been in the business, the giver of awesomeness?
It'll be 3 years in October.
Just 3 years?
Just 3 years. So before that, I've been a certified coach for almost 6 years. And I actually used it when I worked in public education. So another fun fact. So I worked in the 15th largest public school system in the United States. I worked in the academics department, leading teacher leadership development work. So that was helping understand how to facilitate student learning with devices, which, as we think about the pandemic and where we are today, that was in 2014, 2015. So helping teachers understand that the device still requires core instruction and facilitation of the learning that happens around it. So I did that work. And then I also led the hiring of the 19,000 employees that served in the school district. And so I did that for about 2.5 years before getting sick due to my work environment and my bully boss. And so then I resigned.
Okay, where were you in education? Where was this?
Outside of Raleigh, North Carolina.
Oh, is that how you got to North Carolina?
I actually got to North Carolina. We've lived all over. I was born and raised in Rochester, New York. I used to live in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So that's where I started my career when I worked in manufacturing. I worked for General Mills, the Cedar Rapids plant. Great experience. Then I went out to California and worked outside of Los Angeles in the Carson plant. Then I moved to Minneapolis and worked in Chanhassen, not too far from Prince's recording studio. And I worked in the Chanhassen plant and made food service products. And then we moved to Raleigh because my husband's career moved us to Raleigh, and we lived in Raleigh for 8 years. And then 1.5 years ago, we moved to outside of Charlotte.
Now, what does your husband do?
He works for Duke Energy, and he's in IT and project and product management type work. So he has an engineering background as well. And we met at North Carolina A&T State University.
And how long have you been married?
15 years. We just celebrated 15 years of marriage July 2nd.
Ah, my birthday.
Oh, happy belated. Yes, what a great day.
Yeah, it is a great day.
Absolutely.
15 years. Now, you have one child or?
2. I have a son. We have a son who's 12, and our daughter is 9.
And, okay, you need to bring them up realizing they're awesome.
Exactly.
And I've seen some of your posts about your son. Can you tell us a little about him and who he is and what he's about?
Yeah, so my son Zion, he's 12, he's going to 7th grade. And so the coaching technique, I am being certified right now and getting a master practitioner certification for NLP, so neuro-linguistic programming. I also have a certification with the John Maxwell team because I started my career in coaching in the leadership development side. And I found that with my private clients, we weren't having all of the shifts. So they were making shifts and then they were stopping. So I started doing NLP, and I use Zion quite a bit because he's 12 and his mind is very open. He's the kid that will express how he's feeling. and we can work through it. So one of the things since the pandemic was he was doing a lot of apologizing for like random stuff, right? Like just little things like, oh, he bumped into his sister. Oh, I'm sorry. And then later he'd be apologizing because he like spilled milk on like the counter. Like that, I would say to him, save your apologies for like big things that you really mean. Bumping into your sister, yes, you want to apologize. Spilling milk, you just clean that up. Like it's no big deal. And
Right.
so having a hard time figuring out when to apologize and when to not, or he would be apologizing. Hey, can you get your shoes on? We're getting ready to go. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Wait, there's nothing to apologize for. You're just now getting the direction. And so I took him through a process to figure out where in his unconscious mind those apologies actually live. And that's a process that I've learned. And so it allows us to go through the mind and back in our storage and go, where did this come from? And for him, when he was 3, he was in a situation in preschool where he wasn't picked. And to be with like one group and there was another group. And for his 3-year-old brain, who's still learning and processing, he felt like he did something wrong because he wasn't picked. And that's where the I'm sorries and the apologies were coming from. And so he was able to go back. So when you think about our minds, we can have breaks in time due to trauma, whether it's big trauma or whether it's I wasn't picked and I thought I was going to be, or this didn't go the way I thought it would go. And now all of a sudden I feel sad about it, or I thought my career was going to be this and it's not. And so for him at 3, he needs to go back and understand it's not my fault and it's okay. And I can still be me. And once he got those things together, he doesn't do that anymore. He doesn't apologize when he's not really sorry. He may use a different word, but he's not using those words. And that's why I love the work that I do, because ultimately we can all have these moments where we're like, oh, that's not a big deal. Or you try to shove it to the side or like push it down. That didn't happen. I don't feel those emotions. When the truth is we all feel them and it's okay to feel them. And once you feel them and heal them, you can use it. And I think that's what's most powerful. And that's why as a speaker, I wanted to do the work to heal my stuff so that I could retell it without reliving it at the same time.
Do you think most people do relive times that have happened to them and they just don't realize it? And that's why as you were telling it, I thought of times that I would say, I'm sorry. And really, it didn't make sense that I was even saying it, but I said it more or less out of guilt,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't picked or I wasn't involved or whatever.
Yeah, I absolutely know that to be true in the experiences that I've had with other people. It's the understanding that even in the moment, you feel like you should say something, when sometimes moments require nothing at all. There could be that. It's also the sense that sometimes people are overreacting to something, or maybe it's not in the moment, but they come home and they're yelling at their dog or their cat, and the dog or the cat's like, I'm just sitting here. I don't understand. Like, what's happened? And I know you have a dog, so maybe you've even encountered that, where the animal is getting the wrath or the emotion that was really meant for this situation here. And for whatever reason, you didn't feel like you could bring it. Or perhaps sometimes what I used to do was I would come home from work and I would be physically present with my family, and mentally I would be replaying the day and trying to figure out how tomorrow, if I do this, maybe she won't do that, or maybe this won't happen, or maybe that won't happen. And so then that's how we miss life. That's how we miss it, where we're physically in one place and mentally in another.
And I think many people do that, and yet they don't know how to get physically and mentally in the same place.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any tips for that?
The first thing is right now, like if you're listening or if you're watching this, go ahead and start today by saying, I'm going to let my mind be where my feet are. Because when we talk to ourselves, we talk to ourselves more than anyone else talk to us. When we talk to ourselves and we tell ourselves what we want, we're able to then go and make it right. Our minds are made that way. They want to prove us right. So if we say, let my mind be where my feet are, then all you have to do, if you're in a situation where you're like, oh, I'm getting ready to think about this, and this, and this, and this, is simply look down. And if you're a believer in a higher power, then go ahead and look up. Those two things shift your whole paradigm of how you're looking at something. The second thing I recommend is that you start to journal. Take a pen and get a piece of paper or a booklet and start writing. So often people are like, well, what would I write about? You just start. Let your thoughts come out. You may write, I don't even know what to say. I'm not sure how I start. And the writing process will take over when you do it long enough to where you'll start to hear your inner voice. And that inner voice will guide you to hurt, pain that you may have been feeling for a long period of time. And that'll help you see the pattern of what's happening in your life. Those are the two things I recommend.
Now, there are a lot of people who don't like writing and say, I don't want to write. What would you recommend for them?
I would say if you don't like writing, I would first ask, is it that you don't like it, or is that you've been conditioned to not like it? Because, and I ask that because there are a lot of people that have been told they're not a good writer, so they put that condition around it, or when they think of writing, they go back, again, that separation to a time period when writing equaled I have to turn in a paper and somebody's going to grade it, and so there's a value to it. When you're writing to flow what your thinking is, you actually get to a place where the kinesthetic part of you taps into the unconscious mind, which unlocks so many things. That's why writing is such a good thing. And a lot of people don't like to write because they do feel something and it's scary. It can be scary to actually hear your inner voice and go, this is a part of me and I feel this. So for people that are like, I still just don't like it, what I would say is then go ahead and look at the pattern that exists in your life. So if you don't like it, writing, you can always type, you can voice record, you can go ahead and just speak out what's happening in your life. That too will get the thoughts out.
So it makes sense because words are at a level, or the soul is at a deeper level than the words we express.
Mm-hmm.
So when we care about someone, and we care very deeply, you can't always express it. You say these words have very little meaning. How do you help someone give meaning to words or give meaning to caring for someone?
So caring for someone first has to be defined so that it's something that you and the other person can receive. So in the event, Carla, like you and I, we are knowing each other, we're getting to know each other now. How you define how I care for you versus how I define how I care for you could be very different. And so if we don't have a common understanding of what that looks like, then there could be a miss no matter what. Ultimately, to care for someone, we have to be able to ask how they want to be cared for so that we can give them love in the way that they're able to receive it. Otherwise, you could be giving them something that they don't actually see as love or care or concern or help. And then you're met with apathy or defense or anything else. And then you can find yourself feeling resentful. Well, I cared for you. And they're like, you didn't care for me, because they didn't recognize it as that. So that's how we first start with caring for someone. is figuring out how they define what care looks like.
So are you saying that you should go to everyone you know and say, how do you define caring?
I would say for the people that you value, that are in your life, that speak into it, that are in your core circle, I would ask those questions. Absolutely. I have asked my friends those questions, the people that I care about, my besties. I understand what that looks like, because what happens is, and I'll give you an example. So even in the friend realm, when we care for our friends and we don't know how they want to be cared for or how we need to be cared for, it could be the difference between call me every day and call me once a month. Both could be defined as you care for me. Hey, if you need me, call me. Otherwise, we're good. And that difference could be the difference in, oh my gosh, we're really close and something's wrong. Maybe she doesn't love me anymore, or maybe we're falling out of what I call fellowship, when maybe life just got busy. And it's those small things that make a huge difference. And so being able to ask that is critical. Like my best friend and I, she's big, powerful. She's got a great job. She's got 3 kids. She's married. We might only talk once a month, but I know if I needed her, I would call her. We know how to care for one another because we've talked about it. And as our lives have evolved, we've had to negotiate that. Sometimes when we care for people, but we keep an old definition of it, that's when we can find ourselves feeling stuck or feeling resentful. And first you have to check your own emotions before you can call someone else out on theirs.
You fascinate me. I had no idea what to expect tonight.
This has been fun. I hope you've gotten something. I mean, I've enjoyed talking and just getting to know you and seeing your face, like different perspectives.
It's a different way of looking at things and caring for someone. Yeah. Personally, there's someone I really care very deeply for. And recently I've not letting go really, but letting go of my expectations. And it has brought us so much closer.
Yeah. Our expectations can be like a jail, like bondage. I talk a lot with clients that are going through that. I thought this was going to happen. Like the I thought can be the building of the jail around you. I thought it was going to be this. I thought you were going to do that. I thought, and it doesn't have to be that way. You can grieve your expectations and open up yourself to so many more possibilities beyond what you ever thought.
I think you should see this. I've messaged you inbox. If you're ready, I will do session with you now for 30 minutes.
Okay, I'll jump on right after this. Drop the link. Let's have it. Why not?
This guy is definitely your fan.
That is great. I look forward to it.
You've been writing messages like that this the whole time. So I thought I'd share that one with you. It's amazing because I think we all have our expectations, and it's our expectations that make things go crazy and give little meaning to what really is happening in life.
It's the difference. People ask me often, Raushawna, how did you go from engineering into public education to owning your own business? Like, how, and then within your business, how did you go from coaching and consulting to now, like you still do a lot of coaching, but you're public speaking and you wrote a book. Like, how did I do all of that? It's because each step of the way, the one thing that was consistent was my belief that I'll figure it out and letting go of what I thought. Because when I went to college, I thought I was going to be a plant manager, like my mentor was when I was in high school, who was a plant manager and who worked in operations for Kodak when Kodak was around. And so that was my model. And that I thought my career was going to be. Yet along the way, with family changes and moving, we had to renegotiate what that looked like and whose career led. And then I ended up, literally an email came and I stumbled into public education. And through the process that I went through to getting hired, it was a 6-month process. I realized I could take my skills that were transferable and move into new work that was meaningful. And then when that got to a place where I knew internally I could do more, have more, and be more, and that this environment was toxic, I made a choice to bet on myself and start my business. And every day I do that. And that's what happens when you can divorce, or really is grieving the expectations of, I thought it was going to look like this. And then it opens yourself up to a great conversation with you that is now going to turn into another conversation with someone else, which, right, that's beyond expectations.
Right.
Yeah.
And I see that happening in my life too, you know.
So keep one step in front of the other. So often people reward the big shiny things. And I'm a big proponent of, if you took a step, that's worth celebrating, because you went from there to here and now you're going to go to another place. Just keep taking steps.
And that's what life is about. We don't know where our journey is going to take us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I am so glad it has brought me to you. Definitely.
I'm so glad too. And I remember the first conversation we had, and we were both laughing. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow on Mindful. And little did we know it would bring us here today.
Yeah, absolutely. With you after this starting to write your book.
We're going to talk about that, but offline.
We'll talk about that.
The book is something I need to do, and I've been just really lazy about it.
Well, I tell you what, I'll write your foreword if you would like me to, or be a part of it in any way to help you.
We'll talk about it when we get off.
I love it.
The book is The Laughing Buddha. It's all about my journey. Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to help someone. And that's worth writing.
Yeah, you're right. I want to thank you, because right now I'm overwhelmed and you have me at a point that I can't ask any more questions. And Sarmad Mansour is done. He's dropping the link now. I don't think I'm going to be able to be there, but I feel very fortunate to have you as one of the panelists for Mindful.
Thank you. It's an honor.
So much.
Absolutely.
And next week, we're talking about culture and accepting each other's culture. So you may want to be on that panel at least one day.
Okay.
If not more. We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Big mouth me just begins talking. Having said that, thank you so much, Raushawna. I feel really honored to know you.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me.
And perhaps we will do this again.
Yes.
And with that, I want to remind people that this show has been sponsored by the Institute of Peace, which really is creating peace one conversation at a time. And we'll wave goodbye. Bye.